All right, everyone, welcome. This is the Trailblazers 2024 Wisdom from Women Shaping AEC event. Thank you to OpenAsset for hosting today's webinar and creating the space to honor today, International Women's Day. Before we get going, a few housekeeping notes. Our event today is going to last around 90 minutes, but we'll be sending out the recording and some really great resources for you this upcoming Monday, March 11th. So if you have to hop off for whatever reason, you'll definitely capture all of it. And of course, if you want to replay anytime, you'll be able to. So toward the end of today's discussion, we're going to meet the panelists. We're going to have some great talks amongst us, and then you're going to have your opportunity to participate. And I know several of you submitted some questions in advance to us that were fantastic, but we're also going to allow you kind of in the moment after you've heard some of our stories to really share your own. This is so much a conversation for you as much as it is for us to give our perspectives on what our careers and our worlds have been like within the AEC space. So when you're doing that, we have two chats you'll see at the bottom of the screen. We have a regular chat box and we have a Q&A. So if you have a real question that you would like for us to answer, put that in the Q&A box. And then use the regular chat box to chime in, interact with the other attendees, or if you have any technical difficulties, we can certainly help you with that. So Q&A for questions, chat for anything else. So let's kick that off. If you will put in your name, if you'd like, where you're from, what your role is in AEC, we would love to see your background and get to know you a little bit. So I'm just going to wait a few minutes or a few seconds and let some people chime in, and then we're going to kick off. Up that chat box. All right, Lori from Greensboro, I love it. Oh, Katie Bevan, hey Katie. Hi Janky. Oh, I love it. Some Texans in the house, some Phillies. Okay, wonderful. Oh, I'm so glad you guys are here. This is fantastic. All right, great. Okay, well, let's kick it off. First up, you're going to meet us first off, and then we're going to talk about our careers, our backgrounds, to give you some idea of who we are and why we love this space. And we're going to talk a little bit about International Women's Day. It kind of feels like it's a new thing for some people. It's especially the way we celebrate it on social media or even internally within our firms and our businesses, but it's actually been around for quite a long time. And of course, the role, when we kind of even go down even further, of women within AEC is a really interesting history. If you're a marketer, if you're in our space, or if you use OpenAsset as a marketer, we feel like it's a really, really women-rich environment, and it definitely is, but we know that the broader makeup of our industry is definitely skewing the other way, and that creates an imbalance. So we kind of want to open up and show a little bit of our own history and how we can possibly definitely improve that in the years and decades to come. There's so much information and resources out there to get girls involved in STEM and STEAM, in marketing, in business development, and even just participating. We know that the pipeline to get students into AEC is not as good as it should be. And there's a lot of opportunity to get students even as early as elementary school or into middle school and introduce them to these careers and show the value of what we can do in the built environment. So let's dive in. We're going to go next into meeting our presenters. We're going to do a little one-on-one. You're going to get to know them a little bit better. And then they're going to talk to you, and then they're going to answer your questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So like I said, we're going to be about 90 minutes, but the chat happens the whole time. So please participate. Okay, so first up, it's me. I'm Megan. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. I had to do that. A little Taylor moment for you. But I'm Meagan Camp. I'm the owner of The Modern Take, and I specialize in developing content and social media strategies for firms, for consultants, for nonprofits. It's one of my favorite things to do is to play around on social. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, please do. We have a lot of fun. And so I'm so excited to kind of talk about my role as a consultant, but also my role learning about AEC. One of the themes for this event is definitely going to be probably a theme you've experienced in your career, which is that we didn't find AEC, AEC found us, probably. So that's a really interesting facet of our career journeys, and we're going to talk about that. Next up, let's talk about Julie Shaffer. Julie Shaffer is here. She's a fellow with SMPS and a CPSM. She is the owner of Shaffer Creative at Fort Worth, but of course is probably known worldwide for her incredible trainings and workshops and the way that she's empowered marketers to use tools in ways that often they don't get a chance to get training on or to get as comfortable with as they need to for their roles. And her company does lots of other things that we're going to talk about too. We're going to next meet Lindsay Diven, who I'm sure if you're on LinkedIn and you're a marketer in AEC, you follow Lindsay. She's the founder of Marketers Take Flight, host of the podcast AEC Marketers and Marketing Strategies, and then marketing manager at Full Sail Partners. And then lastly is Rachelle Ray, who is our proposal guru. She's the owner of RMR Consulting and, of course, the co-founder of Proposal Industry Experts. I wanted to make sure I got all the words right. I got my screen here, all of the accolades. So next up, we're going to talk about women in AEC. It's so interesting how, especially in the United States, and if you're international and joining us from another country, it's been different in every country. But our perspective being Americans in the US, women getting involved in AEC or in STEM careers at all has taken far too long to get to the pinnacle of those careers. And worse, we've had women who've done incredible, groundbreaking things and never gotten to have a chance to celebrate on a day like today. So we took the initiative and kind of pulled together a quick timeline. This is by no means the whole story, of course, of some really powerful women, but also some things that have happened that we're even talking about today. So there are women out there like Edith Clark, who in the 1920s and 30s became and really pushed to be one of the first well-known female engineers. And what's tragic is that she graduated from MIT, got her MS in engineering, and then she couldn't find work. And she had to go about another 10 years before being given an engineering position. And eventually she got great claim and fame to work for AT&T and be a data analyst and get to do some really fabulous things. And this week also is Women in Construction Week. So if you're a member of NAWIC or you have participated in any of their activities, they have been incredible drivers and opening conversations about women in construction. We mentioned, of course, one of the best known architects, modern architects, Zaha Hadid, who won the Pritzker in 2004. And that whole push for her point of view and her very elegant styles has definitely, I'm sure, influenced some of the work that we see every day. Julia Morgan won the gold medal posthumously from AIA. And it's one of the first women to receive it, or was the first woman to receive it in their 107-year history. I mean, how many women architects, interior designers, contributors to that space have there been? So that's really incredible that she got that. And that really brings us today in our little corner of the world, talking about careers, talking about how we got to where we are, but really hopefully opening up with you and helping give you some insight into the not one size fits all world of working in AEC as a woman. So next up, and these are not stats that will surprise any of us, but we kind of had to put them out there because it's pretty wild. The number of women, these are stats are coming from NAWIC of who participate in project work. Obviously a much smaller amount of women represented in these spaces than on the marketing side, or even worse on the leadership side. There are some incredible women CEOs in AEC who have opened doors, who have changed leadership styles, who have gone through major transitions or M&As. In the past couple of years, I implore you to seek them out. They have so many great stories to tell, but they are really driving change as we move into a new space in AEC, as we see firms go to ESOP, or we go into a founder retires, or we're seeing this massive shift where firms are merging or changing or opening up new markets. It's a really massive time for change in AEC, and women deserve a seat at the table, and we deserve to learn and change along with the industry. So let's try and get those numbers up. Go find somebody to talk to, preferably under the age of 15, and get them excited about it. I love this quote from Alice Walker that we're using. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. And that is actually the core why for today. We don't take time as women often to mark our milestones, to speak up and advocate for things, for even small things, because we don't want to rock the boat. We feel institutionalized against changing the way we work internally, the way we are experienced by clients, Even how we negotiate for raises or we try and accelerate our own careers, we feel put in a box. And that happens either by our own making or on a larger scale, it happens from our society. So we take today not just to celebrate and to post on social and be excited to celebrate the women in our lives, but to actually take a step back and go, what do we want to change for ourselves? And probably that's something that another woman would be inspired by as well. So that is really what days like today can bring out. It can bring out the best in us. So let's meet our first panelist. Or we can do a Q&A, I'm kidding. We're going to meet Julie Shaffer. Julie, I've known you for quite a while. I'm very excited to chat with you today.
Yes, me too.
You were 11 years with a regional engineering firm in-house. And
Correct.
Then you started your company, Shaffer Creative, and you've been with there for 12 years. I think, as I mentioned, you're most well-known, of course, for your incredible trainings. You are always on the go. You are always ready to teach someone new. And of course, that means that you have to yourself stay in the know. So what brought you to start Shaffer Creative, and how did that turn into a trainer teaching role? And what did that go from being behind a desk to being on stage?
Awesome. Well, thank you, Megan. That's such a great question. After I spent 11 years in-house in marketing, and I realized that a lot of people, a lot of marketers don't fully know how to use the software. So when I started Shaffer Creative to really kind of start helping firms, and I started to see that firms all over the country really were struggling. The marketers were really struggling. And I personally believe that is such a challenging role. I might even say it could be among the hardest roles within firms, just because of the nature of the deadlines and all of the other things that go into it. So I thought, if I can just hone and help people with this little thing, if I can just help them be efficient as possible using specifically InDesign and then other products too, that maybe their lives will be just a little bit easier. Maybe they'll get some weekends back or some evenings back. So that was my main driver for starting the training.
I love that. I think we would all love weekends or minutes or days back, especially after the past couple of years. Oh, I love it. Michaela went InDesign fangirly here. Yes, for sure. And I think that's probably made Julie stay. All right. So next up, you have a really unique skill set because of your career background, but also because of your interests in graphic design and being creative. So how do you bring those passions to your role as a consultant now, or even as a course creator or something like that? How do you merge those two worlds, being creative and then also creating something that is kind of templatized or is part of a routine? Is that hard?
So it can be challenging, but one thing that I do have, one advantage I have, is that I am completely surrounded by engineers. So I learned from a really young age how to communicate with my dad, who's a civil engineer, and my brother, who's an electrical engineer. And then I married a civil engineer. So I learned kind of not only how to communicate with them, but also kind of the problem solving that they live in, and really bringing that over to the marketing side too. Because a lot of times proposals are really nothing more than a big problem that we need to solve.
Yeah.
So looking at the mechanics of it, looking at how we can break that down, and then creating not only individual pursuits, but templates and things around solving some of those problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love that. So last thing I want to ask you is, I think one challenge I know I've had in running a business and of course working for someone else is we are very bad at celebrating wins and celebrating milestones and pausing to think that something is worth pausing for. So I'd love to hear an example of a time where you actually did stop and say, everybody pencils down, we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate this win. We're going to celebrate landing this client. What was one of those times where you made sure that you recognized that moment?
So mine's really more of a project, because I've been around for so long. When I was still in-house at an engineering firm, I was able to do the pursuit for a really, really giant project here in North Texas. And then when I went on my own, I actually was able to join that project from the agency side, from public communications. And that project has spanned in construction well over 10 years. And last year, they had a big milestone. They turned on the pumps. And that was such an exciting thing for me, just because I had seen it from a marketer's perspective, from the pursuit, and then from kind of the public communication side of it. And the cool thing is that is a water project. It's bringing water to our communities. And I love that about our industry, that everything that we do is really impacting our people and our communities. And I think it is such a special place to be in.
Oh, I love that. That's so true. Okay, well, next up, let's meet Rachelle Ray. Hey, Rachelle.
Hi. Gotta find
Hi.
that mute button 4 years
I know.
post-COVID, and I still haven't figured out how to work
It's
technology.
been 4 years. I got on this call and I was still on mute for at least the first 30 seconds. So yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome, Rachelle. So your background, 15 years in AEC, 7 years as a consultant. You're most well known for your wizardry with proposals. So you told us you have done over 350 proposals since you began consulting. And then also you have a podcast called Burnout Banter that you're the co-host of. And work-life balance, I'm sure, is something that we all dream of. It's beautiful. Tell us how you came into the industry. Tell us how proposals became your maybe second love.
Or first, love-hate relationship with proposal.
Yeah.
So I like to tell people that I tripped and fell on my face into proposals and face planted hard, because I started in an architecture firm as kind of an intern, and like they didn't know what to do with me. I was an office intern. But I was in college for English at the time, and they were like, English degree equals proficiency in writing equals good at proposals. That was wrong. It was nice of them to think that, but they just kind of threw me, because they didn't know what else to do with me, into this proposal world, and gave me creative license to go play with design and strategy and communication. And I changed my major to advertising, and I got to play with all of this, like bringing these strategic messaging into proposals. And it just like became this lifelong project of like, how many different influences can I bring into this weird corner of the universe that nobody actually teaches you how to do? And so proposals are the never-ending puzzle that I love to put together.
That is so good. And that should definitely be on a t-shirt somewhere. Proposals are the never-ending puzzle. Because yeah. And what's amazing too is that there's something that we have our presets for. We try and templatize too, but it changes every time. It recreates the wheel. You're constantly pushing to tell new stories and to present yourself differently and find those differentiators. I think that's so cool. So since proposals are such a stressful part of AEC marketing, and that's probably the nicest way I can describe it. I know, yes, bless. What unique perspective or what skills did you have, and I know the writing part for sure, that you think kind of helped unlock the way you do proposals, or the way you teach others to do proposals? Is there some sort of secret sauce that you bring to this world?
I don't know about secret sauce, but the creative writing definitely helped, because I'm constantly looking for stories everywhere I go. Like, I want to know people's stories. I'm that person who like sits in the airport and like makes up a story in my head for everybody I see. I want to know project stories, and like I ask why all the time. But I think what's most beneficial for me as a proposal manager are like the soft skills. And I'm going to really, really emphasize those, because I think in general, women are really, really good at soft skills, and those are what power us and make us really effective. But my soft skills are being super, super calm under pressure, and being really empathetic to the teams that I'm working with. And like Julie was talking about working with engineers, I'm really good at looking at my technical team members and being like, I know you have submittals today. So let me work with you to find a compromise to get my job done and not interrupt your job. And it's just, I think that has built really great relationships in my career and allowed me to be successful in proposals.
Oh, for sure. And to build those bonds that you can actually like work with someone who doesn't always understand what we do, but has to play anyways. All right. So I got to ask the milestone question again. Tell me one fantastic moment, milestone, big or little, doesn't matter, that you were most proud of kind of getting going in your career.
So many people probably know me from my LinkedIn soapbox, where I just like complain about the proposal industry. And this might sound really cheesy, but the first time I got a response from a complete stranger from the internet, someone I don't know, they reached out to me and said something I had posted had really resonated with them because it was putting words to things that they didn't feel comfortable voicing because they were afraid of retaliation or backlash. Like that is the single most amazing career moment I've ever had, was realizing that I could be a voice for people and that I could let people know that they're not alone, especially women. I think in this case, I had specifically posted about a client introducing me as their marketing girl. Um, and the number of women who reached out to me and were like, this has happened to me. I didn't realize it happens to so many people, and like bridging that gap and letting everyone know like we're not alone in this and it's not okay. And it's okay to tell people that it's not okay. And I'll be that voice for you. Absolutely. If I have to, if you don't feel comfortable. That is my biggest career win for sure.
That's great. That is so hard too, especially when you're in a new space or you're in a new industry and you don't know the rules and you feel like you have to be just kind of under the radar and don't shake anything up. That's amazing. Well, thanks, Rachelle. Let's meet Lindsay Diven. Hey, Lindsay.
Hello, hello.
All right. Well, how did you, and I know you have a really fantastic career. I love that you're a content creator and you train people and you also have your work at Full Sail. So how did you, were you always super creative and you found yourself in AEC, or were you a data person and you're like, this draws me to it, or did you, like Rachelle, fall into it, in the most random way possible?
Yeah, so I fell into it. I actually studied marketing in college. I didn't know engineering existed, architecture existed. Not very many people in my family went to college, and those who did were accountants or like business administration. So I was like, all right, I'll go into business. And then I was like taking some advertising and PR classes, and then I found marketing. And I'm not like super creative. I think I'm creative enough. I'm really analytical, and I feel like if I would have found engineering when I was younger and knew what it was, or urban planning, I probably would have done that. But I think that's why I get along so well. And my husband's a contractor, and he's like, you would be a great construction project manager. And so I feel like if I would have found it earlier, I probably would have went in that. But I love marketing because I get to be a little bit creative, but then like there's a plan to follow. There's a framework to follow. There's a strategy to follow. And so I feel like that gives me the best of both worlds. And so I try to, like, I have a daughter now and I'm trying to push her into like engineering and STEM, and she's not having any of it, but we'll still work on it. You got to balance that as a mom. Like you can't tell them what to do. So
I love this. Adrienne wrote in chat, your story really resonates with me. I had a very similar path. I love hearing that. And
Yeah.
Tiffany wrote before that relationships are my currency as a marketer. And people are so busy and marketing asks often go unanswered. So true. I think everyone just shivered a little bit when they heard that. But people answer my calls because of the relationships I intentionally build with people. And that, going back to what Rachelle said, but even more so if you're someone analytical like yourself, Lindsay, like knowing how to push, when to pull back, and knowing how to leverage people based upon their strengths is huge. And that gets you that little bit over the edge when you need that little thing. And then when they can actually come back to you and ask for something, that's really great. So thanks, guys. You are putting some amazing stuff in chat. I love it. Stacy wrote, my daughter said that too. Now she's starting an engineering degree in the fall. It could still happen. That's so great.
Yes.
All right. So, Lindsay, you put together a guide for everyone to receive when they get their email on Monday with the recording, called Careers Take Flight. Tell us about it and tell us why you wanted to make it.
Yeah. So about, I don't know, 10 years ago now, I just felt like I was drifting. My husband and I were drifting, and we just felt like we were on this treadmill of like, we get up, go to work, take the kids to school, go home, and we just both weren't fulfilled. And a lot of that, it was career, but it wasn't. And so I wanted to put this, and we did a lot of work to kind of design the life that we wanted. And part of that, a big part of that is our jobs and is our career, because that is so much, takes up so much of our, not only time, but our energy and our emotional resources. And so, you know, I can't help you design your whole life, but I can help you with your career. And so that's why I put together this guide to really, you know, even if you're happy in your career, maybe as like a check, like, okay, I'm on the path that I need to be. If you have no idea where to begin, this guide is a good place to start. And it's a fillable PDF. You can spend a half hour to all day on it if you want. So.
Oh, that's great. I'm excited to see that. I think some of the questions that some people sent in before, you know, in the early questions were really about how do I build a career path when I'm still learning the industry, when I'm in a small firm versus a big firm where there's 10 marketing teams across 6 countries versus we're a 2-person marketing team in a small town. It's so hard to even know what opportunities are out there and to really see that there are about 100 different directions you could go in and have an incredible, enriching, successful career. So thanks for sharing that with us or them. And I'm hoping that we'll maybe see you get tagged in some stories about it. Maybe some people will
I
share
would love that.
what they fill out or take a picture or something or a screenshot if they fill it out. And tell us, because that's the biggest thing I've learned since I got into AEC about 6 years ago was, and then being in different groups or at different conferences, I just hear people ask, well, how does your firm do it? Can I see how do you organize this? Or when you guys are doing proposals, what does that workflow look like? Or where do you save stuff? Or how do you get somebody to answer your email that you know is on site all the time and definitely is not a computer person, aka engineers? And you know that we're looking for mirrors. We're looking for just that little bit of guidance to give some perspective. And so I think in the career space, it's even harder to find those stories because we're really just looking at the people around us. And if we jump to another firm, we're just seeing that limited opportunity within that firm. That's so cool. All right, so last question, the milestone question, because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to tell a little story about a big milestone. Tell us about maybe something with your podcast or when you even decided to launch it. What was a milestone with putting yourself out there and creating a space to talk about AEC marketing?
Yeah, so it definitely was putting myself out there. I've always listened to podcasts, and my last job I had, people have probably heard this, I had a 1-hour commute each way. So I fell in love with podcasts because they were like my companion while I drove. And so I knew I always wanted to do one because I feel like there is an intimacy, like you just get this intimacy with the podcast host or the podcast guest that you just don't get from like a blog article or like a Facebook post. And so just putting myself out there, I had planned to do it and then the world shut down, right? COVID. And so I delayed it a couple of months to like just figure out like what the world was going to look like. But I launched it in June of 2020 and have done 150 plus episodes. I just checked the stats. I'm like 3 downloads away from 60,000 downloads.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so
Everybody
go and download a couple episodes so I can hit over that
Make this
threshold.
happen.
Yeah. And so, but part of it, what I really fell in love with is all the awesome people, marketers, researchers, technical staff that I just get to like have conversations with. I've had some of my colleagues on, my coworkers on, and I get to just talk with them in like a different capacity and get to meet all these interesting people. And it gives me a reason to talk to them. And so I that's what I love about it. The other thing, another milestone I want to talk about and is that I have had the pleasure of building multiple marketing departments over the years. I'm on my 4th marketing department that I'm building. And the one thing that like always brings me joy is when I get to talk to and catch up with my former employees that worked and they have progressed in their career. So I was just talking to a former marketing coordinator. She's at a different firm now and she's like leading a whole region's marketing team. And I just love like, you know, it's not like they're my children, but it's kind of like seeing them grow and seeing them do what they want to do. It's just very fulfilling to me.
Wow, that's incredible. And 4 marketing departments, 18 years of AE experience. I mean,
Yeah.
that's massive to build those teams, but also to be able to keep them intact after the fact. That's so cool. I think that's the dream too for a lot of us, is that they always say too that the good mentors are the ones that want you to leave. They're ready to help you grow so you can go out and do your thing and be whoever you're going to be and not get stuck in a role because there's a nice dynamic or we're, all safe and comfortable. That's amazing. Do you have a particular leadership style or anything that you've kind of grown into to help build out these kinds of departments?
Yeah,
Build
so
up-
one of my mentors a long time ago, one of my first positions, Joe, he told me, he's like, you need to train the person to take your job. You need to mentor and guide that person to take your job because you can't leave until somebody can fulfill your position. So I've always taken that mindset and that approach. And not that everybody's like taking my position, but like, I've changed jobs. So like it became available, but then they go on and they do, whether at the same firm or a different firm, and they grow. So I always take that mindset, and this is for marketing or any department really, is, training those people that report to you or work underneath you to be able to do your position. And that's it. I grow, they grow. I think that it's a great mindset.
That's so good because I think too, there's always the fear of competition between women or the hierarchy. And that kind of things, especially as we are part of like 5 generations in one workforce. We all have so many different styles and we have so many different ingrained beliefs and stories about how we should be working and others should be working. And it's really easy to fall in that trap of, comparing and trying to beat other people or compete with other people. I think that's really great. So we're going to switch gears now and we're going to open it up to all 3 of you and we're going to have a quick panel discussion. All right, so let's do this. First up, let's talk to Rachelle real quick. I love that. Actually, I'm going to read this real quick from chat. Michelle Stewart says, as one of your quote children, I want to express my gratitude to Lindsay for making such a difference in my world. And thank you for all your guidance and support, especially when I wasn't sure about my abilities in this industry. Thank you so much, Michelle. That's so nice. And Meagan, to answer your question, everyone's going to get a copy of Lindsay's career guide with the recording on Monday with some other resources too. So everyone will get that in their email. Okay, so we're calling this panel section Navigating Challenges and Owning Your Unique Talents, which I think is so wonderful to look at your 3 careers because you've taken the time to figure out what those unique skill sets are. And not only have you marketed yourself, but you've been able to kind of build an even bigger foundation for others to feel empowered, to learn the things that you're passionate about. So Rachelle, though, to get to that point, we have to talk about things that didn't go right and things that potentially would have made us say no. And I'll just go back to my corner over here and I'll play it safe. Is there a setback or something that happened? And we can all, I'm sure I'll say 2020 collectively, but besides that, is there a particular setback on your journey, that your career journey, you want to share that ended up either teaching you something or pushed you in a new direction that was unexpected?
I want to preface this by saying I fail all the time. And I'm just constantly learning from it. But I specifically look back on some of my early career and I'm like, I was a terrible communicator. I didn't know how to talk to people about my challenges, my boundaries, my aspirations, misperceptions of what my role was. So I'm going to lump those all into one because it's a bunch of really cringe moments that all kind of come back to, I had this idea in my head in my early career that like, if I said yes to everything, if I volunteered for special projects, if I just like was superwoman, the company would take care of me. I would get my raise, I would get my promotion, someone else would come and save me. And I learned the hard way that that's not true. There is not going to be someone to save you for many of us. You really have to advocate for yourself. You really have to communicate, this workload is too much for me. If you're giving me another assignment, we need to talk about resources. We need to talk about priorities. If you're asking me to work weekends or nights, that violates a boundary. That's inappropriate to me. It should be inappropriate to everybody. We need to have conversations about that. And I just didn't know how to do that in my early career. And I'm much better at it now. I won't say I'm great at it. I will be working this weekend, most likely, because of the pickle I put myself in. But I did it to myself this time. I didn't let anybody else do it to me. So those collective setbacks were just like not understanding my limitations or how to communicate them to other people.
Well, I think that's something everyone in this chat room, everything has gone through. I think there's a Hollywood ending version of our careers where someone is going to see us and is going to go, wow, they've been just pushing and pushing and taking on too much, and we've got to make sure we stop them and help them or show our appreciation. And in the fast-paced, constant turnover of AEC, whether you're in project side or you're in marketing, it's really hard to find that person who advocates for you. But if you can find someone and you can engage with them and have that dialogue, that helps for sure. But at the end of the day, you are responsible, I've heard someone else say today, like the architect of your life. And you have to fight for everything that you put inside that building or whatever you want to be in there, and that no one will come in and help you. But you can build bridges, you can build better relationships, you can learn from others, you can get a great mentor, and you can figure out what that work looks like for you. And so, yes, same. I have a flight on Monday and I was like, well, I guess I'm probably going to do 2 hours on Sunday, but that's my choice because I don't want to feel the pressure when I'm on a plane, and I like to take a nap on a plane or watch a movie. So we're all have our own boundaries and they're all valid. And I think that's so important to hear, is that it's almost not a negative to say no one's coming to save you. It's a positive because that means you don't have to fit someone else's mold to be successful. You get to build it yourself. Yeah.
Thank you for summarizing that like rambling of mine into that perfect sentence.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes. Happy to be here. All right. So Julie, next up. All right. Oh, wait, actually, I'm going to read this from Jessica. I feel like setting boundaries as a woman is viewed differently than if a man set a boundary. And I think we all totally 100% would agree with that. Mostly because we're just conditioned to feel it's different. All right. So Julie, confidence in the workplace. You have mentioned already that you are married to an engineer. You come from a family of engineers. I think confidence and speaking up and speaking clearly is a huge part of probably being successful in your family. But what do you recommend for people who want to speak with a little bit more confidence, or are in a very male dominated, maybe you are a construction project manager and you have the skills and you know exactly what you're doing, and you get in that team meeting and you're just a little bit more like, everybody's great. Okay, let's go do the thing. And you realize that you didn't get to do the thing you wanted to do. But how do you get to speak with confidence? What is your secret?
So the first thing is own your role. Own that you were hired by your firm for a specific skill set and they value you to do that skill, and own it. You are the expert. So if you're a proposal coordinator, you are the expert for that. Be prepared. Make sure that when you go into those meetings, you've read the RFQ or you've read the RFP. I've been in my share of meetings where I'm the only person in the room that's actually read it so that I can speak to what the requirements are. So make sure that you are prepared. I know especially engineers, they love the data. So they love knowing that you know what you're doing, and hone your craft. So you have to decide in your role if this is a job for you or if this is your career. And if this is your career, make sure that you continue to learn, be a lifelong learner. Rachelle and Lindsay both have so many amazing resources to continue to do that. But early in my career, when I first started the industry, I started tagging along with the engineers to go on project sites. And I thought everybody did that. I thought marketers always did that for proposals. And I would go out there and I would listen to the engineers talking to the owners or the operators or whoever. And I would listen to the operators with a marketing hat on as my engineer is listening for technical stuff. And really starting to create this collaborative way that we could put pursuits together. And because they know that I heard it and I spoke with confidence and I spoke with authority, then I was able to have a voice in a highly male dominated boardroom or wherever we were.
Mhm. That's so good. I think especially owning your role, a lot of there's a lot of gray areas, I think, when we think of marketing, because we think of traditional marketing, things that we're seeing every day as consumers. And I did not know until I really dug in and had my first job in AEC that there really is that dividing line between traditional marketing, the e-blasts and updating the website and writing the blog posts, and then proposals, pursuits, BD, everything involved in it's just totally separate. And that is probably terribly overwhelming for someone's first position. I know it was for me. And so taking that time to step out, learn what your job is, ask questions, get clarity, especially if you're in a hybrid environment or you're still working from home all the time, that's got to be just so hard to do. Thank you for that. That was great. Okay, Lindsay, you mentioned you have your daughter who you're, let's say, lovingly coercing into a STEM career. Talk to us about how you juggle work, home. I feel like I'm reading like the same sentence that we were reading in 1975, but how do we talk about work-life balance with a family? How do you prioritize things? Are you able to? Is that still kind of a bit of a fantasy for the modern woman?
Yeah. So I want to talk about 3 big things to work on and get right, and not so much the day-to-day tactics. And it took a while for me to get all 3 of these right. And so the first 3 things I think to focus on is, first, being very clear on what you want. Like not like what you should do, but what you want to do, your goals, your life plan. I'm going to get you started with that career guide. And I was probably about 10 years into my career before I sat down and really thought about this and really thought about what I wanted I was kind of at my wit's end. I was kind of burnt out, and I was like, something's got to give. And so that's what I'm going to kill somebody. But so I got really clear, and then I shared that with my husband, and then we started working the plan. And when I got really clear on that, it was easier for me to say no to things that didn't fit in with what we were trying to achieve. And I didn't really let distractions distract me. So that's big strategy number 1. Big strategy number 2, especially, this is very important, is have a great partner. And so if you're married, make sure your partners, if you have kids or you want to have kids, make sure you're with a very supportive partner. Because I will tell you that my career would not be where it is without my husband. I'm very fortunate. We have friends, like we're in our mid-40s now, so we have some friends on their second marriage, and stuff like that. And it makes a world of difference when you have a supportive partner that takes the workload. I mean, we talk about mental loads and household loads and all that stuff. You need that if you want to have a career outside the home. And it ebbs and flows. So I lean into my career, and he kind of leans out of his and takes more at home, and vice versa. And so I feel like that's the second, if you want to have a family and a career, I think having a supportive partner, whatever that looks like, is key. And then the third is more of a mindset shift. We already talked about this a little bit, mentioned this idea, this concept of work-life balance. I'm here to tell you that doesn't exist. So just get that out of your mind, right? Society tells us that we need to build our career, building relationships with our spouse, our children, have an Instagram-worthy house, have time for self-care. BS. BS. Because when you're at work, you're not at home and you're feeling guilty about it. And when you're at your kids' events, you're not at work and you're feeling guilty about it. And so, you have to be one place or another. You can't be at both places. And so why are you beating yourself up? You've got to work, right? I mean, most likely if you're on this call, you've got to work, or you want to work because you got to pay bills. And so once I let that go and just said, when I'm at work and I'm doing work, I'm not feeling guilty about my kids. And when I'm with my kids, I'm not feeling guilty about not working on something. And let me just tell you how freeing that was. So those are the three big things I think to work on. And then the rest of the day-to-day stuff really falls into place. But I do have a podcast episode if you want tactics. And that episode is number 51. And it's the 5 lies we tell ourselves that poison our productivity. So those are more in my day-to-day tactics. But I like to focus on the big things that are going to really move the needle, both in your life and in your mental well-being. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
I think that's great. And I think too, there's so much out there in terms of that support, but it really does come from inside. You can be a single parent, you can be in a complex situation, you can be through a major transition. And if you don't know what your priorities are or how you're going to handle yourself in other situations, that's the thing, that's the differentiator. And so I love that you said that you have to let go of that guilt. That is essential to getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it'll change like depending on your season of life. So, it's going to ebb and flow what you can do more of or what you can do less of.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Julie, back to you. Oh, go ahead. Did you have something to say, Julie?
I wanted to jump on to Lindsay's for just a second, if I may. And that is, I was a single mom during the time that my kids were little. I was a single mom for 7 years as a coordinator. And one day at work, my daughter had a school program and it was during the day and I had a pursuit to work on and I was going to stay at work because I had to do this job. And my executive admin came to me and said, Julie, you will never remember the pursuit that you're working on right now, and neither will we, but she will always remember that you weren't there. And that was so profound to me so early in my career that I left. I left my job that day and I went and I saw her school program and I remember that and she remembers that. And that was so huge. So I encourage you to set those boundaries and know when to leave work and be with your kids.
So true. I mean, how many fires do we think will be the be all end all of our careers? And then they're 2 weeks later, they're 50 things down, have happened since then. So true. So true. Thanks, Julie. Nicole Lavender just wrote amen. That's so true. Okay, Julie, next question for you. And what I think I've had great conversations with you about your continuing learning. Part of how you stay not relevant, but how you stay on top of what to teach others is by continuously being a student yourself. And I think that once you get to a certain stage in your career, you kind of feel like, okay, well, I've learned my essentials. I can kind of navigate anything. Even today, I was bouncing between Google Slides, PowerPoint, and beautiful AI to figure out how to run the presentation. I was like, I know one of these will work because I've used some of these before. But how important is it to stay humble enough and continuing to be a student throughout your career?
Well, luckily I've picked something that constantly changes. So not only does this industry change and every RFQ, as we know, is different, but things like InDesign, we're constantly being updated and I'm constantly challenging myself to learn something new in the software. So challenge yourself every day. Maybe there's something that you have to do and maybe how to do it, but start to think, is there a better way or a faster way or a more efficient way? And I'm constantly doing that in the software. And I'm constantly doing, additional learning to make sure that I stay on top of it, as you mentioned. So just, again, part of that honing your craft thing. And the other thing is pick something that you're passionate about, and that can really become infectious. So when I first decided I was going to start, hit the regional speaking circuit, I pitched some ideas that I thought would be accepted as, programs, and I was never selected. And I was so defeated, thinking I'm not cut out for this. And so then I pitched something that I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about graphic design and about InDesign and really the creative aspects of proposals. And then that started to get picked up. So be sure that you're doing something that you're passionate about, and that passion really will become an outpouring from you and become infectious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say what 150, 200 workshops, webinars, et cetera later. You've honed it. I love it. Okay, Lindsay, back to you. Another question for you. How are you hoping to guide or empower or model even for the next generation of women in AEC? There's a lot of the tools and a lot of the conversations you've had with other marketers has kind of opened up some spaces for you to sort of talk about, like, here are the things that, we need to push more on, or here are maybe the boundaries, or even at an industry level. Can you kind of speak a little bit about how you, or even some things that you've seen that should be pillars of excellence for women in AEC?
Yeah, great. So I did a whole episode on this, shocker, actually with Gina Renee Autry from Kleinschmidt. I got to give a shout out to my girl, Gina Renee. She is really honed in on this whole mentoring, and in our episode 148, she talks about it. And so you can check that out. But my other tips are, and some of this, I forget who mentioned it, but it was like leading by example, or like modeling the behavior you want to see. And even if you are not a lead, quote unquote, leader in your firm by title or by circumstance, you can still exhibit and display the qualities and act like a leader without having the title. Like, I'm giving you the title today. Like, you're a leader. Everybody's a leader, right? And so I try to train all of my marketing coordinators, like, to behave. I think it was Julie said, like, be prepared, read the RFP. Like, we meet our internal deadlines, because how can we hold anybody else accountable for meeting their deadlines if we're not meeting ours? So, like, it's those kind of, like, leading by example first. I think that way, because people take notice, and especially the other, women around you and women in other roles, not even in marketing or technical roles or accounting roles, they are watching you. And so whether you want to be a leader or you're anointed a leader, people are watching you. And so lead by example. And then I think somebody else already said it, like, invest in your own professional development, like continuous learning. Like, I know I hear a lot of people like, well, my firm won't pay for that, or, I won't get my expense reimbursed. And I'm here to tell you, your firm doesn't owe you that. Now, it would be nice. I mean, it is the logical thing to do. Like, a firm is only going to get better if their people get better. But it's just, some firms just aren't like that. And going back to, you own your career, you own what you want to achieve. Like, nobody's coming to save you. And so, depending on, you're in a financial situation, and part of my career guide, it talks about, like, what skills you need to learn, what resources there are out there. You can put some budgets around them and, like, put it into your financial budget, so invest, whether it's like a course or a webinar or a mentor. There are some, a lot of SMPS chapters have free mentorship, but there's some paid mentorships. So just really, look at owning your own professional development. And then in kind of in the same vein, promote and attend networking events in safe environments. So thank you to OpenAsset. I think today's environment is very safe. People are we're being very honest. You guys, the audience is being very honest. And so I think the more we can talk about these kind of issues in safe environments, I think that'll help others feel safe to talk about some of these taboo topics. And then lastly, I'm not going to leave without, like, we talked about advocating for yourself. And then my last tip is always reaching back to lift up others. Even if you're not at the C-suite, you're not a marketing director, you're not a director, there's always somebody behind you, and you can always reach back. So even if you're a marketing coordinator that's only been in the industry for a year, is there a marketing intern? Is there a marketing assistant that you can reach back? Because that's how we fill our leadership pipeline of women, is when we keep reaching back and we're getting them ready for their next level. And if everybody did that and reached back and helped one person, we wouldn't have this void pipeline without great women in it. or we'd be less likely, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think an interesting stat that I know S&P has done before, I think it was in the blueprints, is sort of, we talk about pipelines going out, that kind of thing. But as we go higher and higher in our careers, there are fewer opportunities to advance to principal, to C-suite, to even a leader, a CEO or anything like that. We have fewer and fewer opportunities, but we are all going to, continue growing. So how can we change that landscape in AEC? How can we create more roles for women? If marketing is your track, or if you switch gears and you're going to be a technical professional, or you're going to, work in HR, internal, whatever it may be, we have to start opening up the more positions we can have filled by women at higher levels, the better we can do that reach back. And I think that's so true, because often we see someone rise and we're really excited for them, and then we don't stay in touch, and it's really hard to keep those relationships going. It's such a, we're holding all these other relationships in the air at the same time and I realize. So to have that be reciprocated would be an incredible movement, because there's so much to learn, but we communicate differently, we look at the world differently, and we lead differently as women, and that has its place in AEC by far. And as I mentioned, some of the female CEOs that I've talked to or heard speaking, in different panels or in different events, things like that, always talk about how they got there because they either fought for it, they created that space, or someone gave them that space. Another person, and it was usually a man, gave that space to them because they were able to prove themselves, but they had to have space or projects or opportunities to prove themselves. And that's what we really have to be doing more of. So I love that. Thank you so much. Okay, well, next up. Oh, I love it. Jocelyn says she's got to jump, but she's learned so much and enjoyed every topic. Thank you, Jocelyn. So we're going to jump to a Q&A. And like I mentioned, we have a couple of the questions that were submitted to us in advance. But I know we have a couple of Q&As already, or questions already in the Q&A box that we're going to read. And I'm definitely going to read these, so they already look really good. But I have a couple that are from that list before that I think were really fabulous questions. And so I'm going to open it up. And so if whoever wants to jump in first, please do. So the first one is, I think really speaks to probably where a lot of us are if you kind of found your way into AEC and it wasn't something you knew about. I think I only know like 2 people that knew they were going to be an AEC marketer at a very tender age of 16 or something like that. But this person says, I'm a 40-year-old professional with 6 years of experience in AEC marketing, coupled with an advanced degree and 10 years of experience in a different industry. Even though I'm not new, I feel like I could use a mentor or guidance on how to advance in my role. So what options are available for a mid-career professional like myself to find someone, to find another guide? And we're all very well seasoned in this space between the 4 of us and have been able to forge friendships and things like that. But how do you do that when you've got a few years under your belt in AEC, but haven't been able to maybe make a lot of those relationships?
Well, I'll go. Reach out to me. No. I think there's a power in social media, and I think there's 2 types of there's like a couple of different types of mentorship we can look at. And so one is like the very individual, personalized, where you have like a formal program where you have like a mentee, mentor, you guys meet regularly, and whether it's via Zoom or in person, and you like map out a plan. That's kind of the traditional mentorship. But there's also like, I want to say like virtual mentorship or like from afar mentorship. Like I know there's people in my career that I follow that I've never met in person, but they give me so much advice and so much guidance, and they answer the questions that I need to have from like afar. I don't know. I don't know the right word. It's not really virtual, but so I would seek out both, and then join different networking groups or peer groups for people who are like mid-career like yourself, or a little bit ahead of you, or even behind you. Like I feel like we've started exploring reverse mentoring, where somebody earlier career is mentoring somebody later career, because there's a lot to learn. They have different experiences, especially new professionals coming out of college and going through college during COVID, they have totally different perspectives and skill sets and abilities. And so there's also reverse mentoring. So again, it goes back to your career plan of like what you want to do. And then once you figure that out, seek out a person that's doing that.
Mhm.
Find them on LinkedIn, reach out to them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think LinkedIn is a huge tool, especially for the past several years, to make connections. Somebody wrote, I've never met Lindsay in person, and she is my best mentor. So thanks, Ernestine. I think that's true, especially being a person who works in social media. I feel like 80% of my career. I have made so many great relationships and learned so much just by doing that outreach. Just after I saw someone's webinar, or I read someone's great article, or met them in, if I did meet them in person at a conference or something. But that is such a low risk way to forge a connection. And then you get to be yourself, and you get to ask questions and continue learning from them. But it definitely does not have to follow the traditional format, because I think that asks a lot of both sides sometimes. And so find a way that works for you, for sure. Anyone else want to talk about finding a mentor or finding an advocate even? I hope you guys are good. Okay. All right. Next question. Okay. So do you guys think the roles and possibilities for women in this career path is shifting when looking at their potential 10, 20, 30 years into their career? It can be difficult to know how to set career goals for the niche part of the industry. And I think we can all speak to that. I know, Lindsay, you touched on this a little bit, but maybe if someone could kind of talk a little bit about that 10, 20, 30-year mark, and what potential is out there, or even how you view it yourself. You guys are, kind of halfway there.
I will attempt to field this one first, I guess. Especially because I've never been very intentional in my career. Like I said, I've tripped and fell into it. I started consulting because I felt like I had reached where I could go in-house. And I felt like I needed to leave to continue to grow. But what I never did was sit down and actually have conversations about career growth when I was in-house. So I think there are so many places that proposal professionals, marketing professionals, women in general can go. I'm going to go back to those soft skills. And I won't talk about this too much, but like AI can take a lot of technical skills away from people. It cannot take your soft skills away. So I think those are going to become more important than ever in the next 5, 10, 30 years. And I think women have a really wonderful opportunity right now to lean into those skills and bring them into leadership positions specifically. So I would really, jumping off of what Lindsay was saying earlier, really figure out Julie was talking about passions, figure out your passion, figure out your skills, like Lindsay was saying, and then combine those and figure out like what's going to make you happy in 5 years, what's going to make you happy in 10 years. And then just stay open to the possibilities is something that one of my mentors said to me many, many years ago. And that's how I have a business. It's how I got involved in Pi. I was like, sure, why not? I've never run an online community before. That sounds cool. And here we are, like doing these really wonderful, amazing things. So I think if you keep your eyes open for maybe unconventional opportunities for yourself, you're going to find yourself on a really amazing career path.
Yes, I totally agree. I think all 4 of us would not have thought maybe that we'd have our own businesses one day, or that we would have left a traditional role to create something new, and make that work. I think that's the most exciting part of all, is that you never know when you're going to level up, and all of a sudden that's going to become the thing you not only get to do, but it's the right fit, because it's, that could be jumping into all of a sudden you're leading and managing 3 people, and you're responsible for taking care of them. You're responsible for giving them support and direction, and then of course keeping your own work going. So there's a lot of spaces there where you just have to be open and you have to be ready for it. Okay, next up, let's actually jump over to the Q&A box. Let's see here. Okay, so career paths are pretty limited in my construction company. This is from Tiffany. Our HR is starting to look at it. And what are some other possible career paths within marketing beyond proposal coordinator, graphic designer, or marketing manager? I know we've all seen inside many different structures of marketing teams, and maybe even Lindsay with you having built some of them, but Julie, Rachelle, For it.
I would love to jump in on this because I've seen a lot of success for people that have the skill set for proposals to kind of go into a parallel lane of maybe helping your construction teams or your billable teams on some of their reports and executive summaries and some other things that can really help them and their deliverables to the owner or to the client that really is using your skills, your technical skills in the software and being able to coordinate content and all of those things. So really starting to kind of, take a little turn off of marketing into that can really start to expand your horizons for other types of work within your own firm.
That's a really great point.
And I'd like to add too, so yeah, I kind of pivoted a little bit. I wasn't at a construction firm, but one of my earlier engineering firm jobs, I pivoted into public involvement. So I was a public involvement coordinator for a couple of years for all of their planning projects, but you could do that in construction. And I was just talking with a construction firm, all of there's so many other types of communications in construction firms, like your safety communications, your subcontractor relations, in all the subcontractor marketing, which is a little bit different than the client marketing. So there's all of that as well on the construction side, as well as I would be remiss if I didn't say technology, database management, information management, pipeline management, revenue forecasting, all that kind of stuff. You can go. So it really just depends on your interest. And that's what I love about it. Like I gravitated more towards the pipeline management and the forecasting and the CRM and the information management. But that was me personally, whereas Julie probably gravitated more towards the graphic design and the creative element. So that's, again, why I love marketing so much. There's so many different avenues you can go down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the umbrella word cloud of marketing pretty much could touch almost every single department. I mean, HR is, with internal communications, there's of course your leadership, they all have different marketing needs themselves. And I think a lot of times we get siloed to the side because marketing doesn't feel as core to the technical side, but man, we win the work so they can go do it. So, definitely think outside the box, but also it's really great to even ask around and maybe take someone to lunch or book a Zoom call with someone not in your department, learn what they're working on, get to understand their dynamics better. And you may find a different opportunity there just by taking the time. Especially if you're not someone going in the office all the time or you don't have exposure to other departments. It's another form of soft skills, definitely to build better relationships, but to find maybe something different that does align something you didn't think of, data with your marketing skills. I think we have a really interesting set of skills as marketers that can be applied in a lot of different places. I love that. Okay. So next up, let's see here. Reading. Okay, Rachel says, how do you stay motivated despite obstacles, to be brave and to speak up, or to play the game so others understand me, but engineers, business execs, etc. I think my current work often discredits my thoughts because of my age and gender. Totally fine if this isn't answerable this time or needs to be a sidebar. But I actually think that motivation question is huge if you work on a team of one, or if you are new, or if you've been around a long time and you feel a little burned out and you're not sure where to go next. I would love to get some different perspectives on this. How do you stay motivated despite obstacles?
I'll jump into this one too, because I sound like I'm 5 years old. So people often look at me and they're like, you've been doing this for 15 years. But it was really bad when I was in-house. This hit home, like I flashbacks right now to trying to have conversations and people kind of discrediting my experience or discrediting my ability. But what I always tell people who are new to the industry or who are younger is that is an advantage. Because it's your ability to challenge the status quo, this is how we've always done it, that's going to propel your company forward. Because so many AEC firms get stuck in, this is how we've always done it, or this has worked for us. And sometimes it's fine, it's a comfort level, but at a certain point that becomes a detriment, and we need your perspective. We need you coming in and asking, why do we do it this way? Why don't we try this? I have an idea. We need that fresh talent. We need those fresh ideas to come in and spice things up, to keep us moving forward, to keep us innovating, and to keep us at the forefront of our industry. So definitely spin it that way in your head. It's an advantage. And don't discredit yourself like you did in this question. Nobody needs to sidebar you, and especially not yourself.
Yay. So
Yeah.
true. Julie.
And I would say celebrate your wins. I mean, it's so hard because we're so busy and it feels like such a beat down. But as a competitive person myself, whenever we're shortlisted or we get a win or something, celebrate that, even if it's just a quick little pat on your own back or you treat yourself to a Starbucks or something, but just give yourself the time and the permission and the grace to celebrate when you've done something really well. And that will help keep you going.
Yes, I love that. Lindsay.
And I just wanted to add, when it's trying something new, it's engineering, architecture, construction firms. They're really scared to try things new. It's really hard with change management. I deal with this all the time, especially at Full Sail Partners when we're trying to implement new software. And so when you're trying something new, when I tried something new in the past, especially when I was in-house, I would say, let's just try it as a test. We're going to pilot it. We're going to do it very small and we're going to see the results. And that usually like if I was trying a content marketing campaign or we were trying a new go, no-go form, like, we're just going to try it with this group. Or when I, implemented like some capture planning, I'm like, we're just going to try it with this one pursuit. And by the way, we won that pursuit. So that it's like keeps the momentum. But like, just people are scared of change, especially how we've always done it, or it hasn't worked in the past. So why should we try it again? But there's something with when you say, let's just try it. Let's just do let's call it a test pilot or, whatever it's called. And usually people are like, okay, we can do that. And so it's kind of like working with your kids,
That's so good. I think too, being able to feel like it's contained until it's successful, right? We're just doing a mindset switch on them. That's great. Okay, Zoe asked, how do you build professional relationships and find a mentor as a fully remote employee? I know we touched on some strategies, but the fully remote part is such a big challenge now. So any advice?
I think we talked a little bit about it, social media. I've been working fully remote for 6.5 years. So like well before COVID, I work for 100% virtual company. Like we don't have an office. Everybody works remote. So we do have to have a concerted effort to communicate and engage employees. And so we try to do that as best as we can through Microsoft Teams and like planned meetings and some fun things. But I think joining, if you're not a member of SMPS, that's a really good organization. It's about $400 a year. Again, that's, investing in yourself, professional development, because then there are listservs and online communities and you're a member of a local chapter. I have a Facebook group. You can just search up Marketers Take Flight. A lot of people ask questions there. I know Rachelle's Pie community. So there's a lot of online communities. So that's always a good way for fully remote if we can't get in person, especially if you live in a place that's kind of out there or distant. That's the next best thing.
I also just want to chime in with a little story to emphasize this, because I'm pretty sure Victoria is somewhere in the comments. But this woman reached out to me a couple of years ago and was like, I follow you on LinkedIn and I'm looking for a coach. And it turns out I'm a really terrible coach, but we've like built this kind of mentorship relationship and I've had the opportunity to watch her grow. So the point of that is just to say, if you are nervous about reaching out to somebody else, you're probably going to make their day. Like I was so excited to see this woman's message, and just to have been friends with her now for a couple of years is really wonderful. So just go for it. Be brave.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, Rachelle, of another story. So when I became a marketing director, I was never a marketing director before. And so like I didn't know what to do. And so what I did was I found a couple of people in my town who were also marketing managers of people. And and we weren't in like competing firms. And I organized the group and we met for breakfast once a month to talk about management issues, like managing people. And our little group met for like 2 to 3 years. And it was such a great group. And now I've reached out to a couple other people and we're doing something similar with like digital marketing. And we now meet on Zoom because we're all over the country and there's like 4 or 5 of us. So try to find a couple of people and just reach out and be like, hey, I have this crazy idea. Let's just try it. And, again, my piloting, that's how I convince everybody to do something.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to second too that anytime you attend something that, someone in, a marketing person or someone like us who's been in your shoes, definitely tell us what resonated most, like what's saying for you. I know a couple people have in the chat today already. Yes, it does make our day, but two, it also helps us get better informed on what you're struggling with and what questions you have, or even what skill gaps are happening, because maybe you're fully remote or something like that. That's probably one of my favorite parts of being an AEC is a lot of our education is totally peer led. So everyone you're hearing speak here or at a webinar, or you're going to, a lunch and learn or something like that. We are all peers in so many ways, but we just happen to have, we like to talk. So, let us be that person who can kind of break you out of your shell a little, but definitely always reach out if something resonated. We do love to hear that, but it really does remind yourself that you're part of a really big community that's very active. And especially if you're a marketer, we do love to talk. We love to talk to one another. We love to talk about our work. You're definitely not alone. So find a space that you can join and get comfortable with and find that safe space. We are all eager to teach one another things or share resources or send things. I think that was one of my first things with SMPS was getting into the listserv and finding how open everyone was. There was not a lot of like proprietary or competitors. I won't talk to you. It really wasn't like that because we have to learn on our own, because we didn't go to school for this, because we didn't get time to get the full training that maybe someone else did, 10, 20 years ago. So enjoy it and dive in for sure, because we're all here and we're all here for it. Okay, great. Oh, Tracy, the listserv, we're kind of talking about just in any professional organization you join, if it's SMPS or if it's, if you're a technical professional, if it's an ASHE or if an ACEC or something like that, and they all have their different ways you can communicate amongst your members. All right, so let's see, I think we've got about 8 more minutes left. Let's do one more question. Maybe 2. We'll see how it goes. All right. So I'm going to pull this one from one that was already sent in. Can you, and where this kind of speaks to what we just talked about, can you tell of an instance where you were able to manage the gaps in your own skill set within the time constraints that challenged or perhaps didn't allow you to meet the goals of a project? So balancing your own, training gaps or weaknesses possibly, and knowing that that's going to impact your work. Can you talk about how you got through that situation?
Fake it till you make it. So I know as an InDesign user, especially, sometimes if you look at it in preview mode and it looks fabulous, and you look at it in like the design mode or normal view and it looks like a hot mess, that's okay. You still just fake it to get that pursuit out the door. And then hopefully you can figure out those skill gaps and fill it in later. But just absolutely, it is fine. You will be fine. So just fake it.
Absolutely. I second that. Okay. Anyone else? Now we'll jump to the next one. Okay, great. All right. So next one, this is a good one. How do you create opportunities to advance in a position where there is no clear path upwards?
Do you want me to take that one? I'll take
Yeah,
that
go
one.
for it.
So I get this question a lot, especially from marketers who work at smaller firms, or it's like a 1 or 2 person marketing firm, or marketing department inside a smaller firm. And I will say that, and I'm kind of like that now. Wholesale Partners, we have less than 50 people. Our marketing department is like 3 people plus a graphic designer. And so, including myself. So we have a small firm. And so I think opportunities to grow is not always like my career growth and other people's career growth isn't always a straight line up. There's some sideways, there's some like diagonal. I liken it as like the dome jungle gyms where you can just like crawl all around. And so I feel like instead of looking at like your career growth, look at the functions and the skill sets you're learning or you want to learn and bring those to your, if you are in a small firm, bring that into your small firm and they will make kind of the path for you, hopefully. If not, maybe other opportunities will present itself that will. So I think it's where you're looking at your own skill sets and it doesn't have to fit this like, okay, this is the next rung. I don't look at it like as a career ladder, like, okay, we got to go to this step and then this step and then this step, because life doesn't work that way. Life is messy. Opportunities present themselves or don't present themselves and you've got to make decisions. And so I think, really focusing on what skills, where your passions are and what skills you want to learn and how to move forward with those. And then how to contribute to your, and hopefully those contribute to your firm. And then they acknowledge that, or you tell them, you advocate for yourself and then get that new role.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say chat is blowing up because we dropped our LinkedIn URLs there so you can connect with the 4 of us. And then I see everyone is doing the same for themselves. So I think this is really great. I hope we build a community out of this. That would be super fun. So definitely drop your LinkedIn in there and connect with the 4 of us. Let's see here. We've got about 9 minutes left. I had my timer on of when I knew we should definitely slow down a little bit. Let's see here. In here. I like this question. Though I've been in marketing and digital comms for nearly 15 years, I recently started a new career path in AEC proposals. While there is an overlap, much of this is new. Any tips on how to digest all this newness? What a great line.
I'm just going to reiterate again, SMPS. So joining SMPS, there's so many resources on my SMPS. And then check out Lindsay's podcast. And there's some other podcasts out there that have such great information of filling kind of those gaps to help you make that transition. But again, SMPS is such a great place to start.
Yeah, and I would say that being in marketing and digital comms, you already have a heads up. You already are deadline driven because those are deadline driven efforts. So really just approaching proposals like a deadline, like a content piece you're trying to put together. You just have a bigger team that you're usually working with. And either tighter or longer deadlines, it kind of varies sometimes with digital comms. And you're just putting together a bigger piece. So it's really a project management. I mean, really proposal management is project management. So if you look at it through the lens of that and approach, you probably already have the writing and the persuasive and ability to get stories out of people if you're coming from communication. So I feel like you already have a leg up. It's really just honing in on your project management skills.
Yeah, probably very intimidating to think that you have to focus it all on something that's not external. That's probably really hard too. Okay, well, I think if anyone has any final remarks or kind of wants to say something they didn't get a chance to, let's open it up one more time and then we're going to do some thank yous and hopefully hop over to LinkedIn and make a bunch of new friends. Anyone want to say anything else? We good? Did we cover it all? Have we solved all the problems? I think we may have. Okay, cool. All right. Well, as I mentioned, people are dropping in their LinkedIn URLs in the webinar chat. And I believe that if you asked questions in the Q&A, we're going to try and answer those later, and you'll probably receive an answer in the next couple of days. So I think that we could all say that the participation has been incredible. And I know we had over 1,000 people who registered, and I'm really, really proud that we got to kind of get some of your time today. It's a busy Friday. Spring break season is about to kick off. But next, I want to thank OpenAsset. They reached out to us several months ago and said, we really want to start this idea of a Trailblazer conversation on International Women's Day. And so they created this safe space. We shared a lot of cool stories. People really chimed in and felt free to do so. And I think that's hard to do sometimes in a webinar format. So thank you to everyone who did that. But OpenAsset's Janelle Poisel and Sesame Mish really drove the organization of this event. And of course, Derek Reese from marketing is always fabulous and gave us the opportunity to do this and leads the whole team of marketers at OpenAsset. So they get us. But I really also, of course, Julie, Rachelle, Lindsay, we had a couple of calls before this to get prepared and think of some great stories. But you're so generous with your insight, with your personal stories, and then also the things that you teach others. And that is really the root of what's exciting about our niche part of AEC, is that we are storytellers and we love to support one another and we love to kind of lift each other when we need it. And that's those soft skills coming into play once again. So as I mentioned, please connect with us. Let's strengthen our networks and keep these conversations going. International Women's Day is over 100 years old. It started with a protest in 1908 and was formalized an international holiday recognized by the UN in 1975. It is something that is outlasted all of us and will continue to do so. But the importance of it is that we celebrate milestones and we have big conversations about hard things. So I pulled a quote from the International Women's Day website, which is that there's a space and place for everyone to help fight the good fight. And that's the spirit of abundance. So make every day International Women's Day and do your bit to ensure that the future for girls is bright, equal, safe, and rewarding. And I think that's what all of us hope to create every day. So thank you to everyone. And I think we'll probably hang out for a minute, connect on some LinkedIn goodness. But once again, thank you, OpenAsset, for hosting us.
And thank you, Meagan, for corralling us and leading our conversation today. So thank you for being a good moderator.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me, everybody. It was a lunch best spent, someone said. I love that line. A lot of great, it's shocking, a lot of great writers in this chat. Who knew?
Who knew?
Okay. I know we finished a few minutes early too. We did good. Okay. OpenAsset team. Anything else?